Okay, so today's topic is about topic 3, which is conceptual database design. So our outline of today's lecture is mainly about the database design. Before we start with any database designing or whenever we are creating any diagram, we need to know how we'll be carrying out through, how we can carry out it through the number of phases, okay, or stages. So this is something we also have to consider as a database administrator, what are these steps are. We will be focusing on today's lecture on one of them, which is a conceptual database designs, which is ER models. We will cover the entities, attributes, and relationship. We did cover entities and attributes before, and we did look at the relationship from starting from week 1. But now we will dig more into detail about the cardinalities, participations, connectivities, relation degree, and generalization. We do have these parts. This is for you to read, and I will try to cover in case required. I might create a videos, but this is for you to read. This documentation you will not be able to view now because I have to create one document for you and I have to set something for you here. So you do not have to worry about these two parts right now. This is mainly for you to make sure how your diagram is correct. Obviously, we are constructing an ER diagram, but only the correctness or if there is any different notations. We are not using different notations. We will be following one of them. But in order for you to know that there are other notations are also there, I will create one document for you. It is already there, but I haven't uploaded it yet. Okay. So now what is database design? So we say the database design is something like a foundation, or it is like pillars which we create in order to start implementing a database. So if you remember, I have given you one example in my week 1 or 2. We said that whenever we start constructing a house or building, we always start with creating a map for that, or architecture maps, or the blueprints we create for them. So we know that how the house will look like, the layout of it, of the building will look like, or house will look like. Same way, we have to know the structure of our database also. How we can do it? We start with the phases. Our first phase is conceptual database design, which consists of number of different modeling. For our course, in this specific one, we are only focusing on ER diagrams, so ER modelings, entity relationship modeling. We do have something logical design and physical design, which we will cover in our next weeks or upcoming weeks. Okay. So what does a conceptual design means? It is more like a layout for your database, that what type of entities will be there, what type of attributes will be there, and what type of relationship will be there between these entities also. So now what is ER modeling? So ER modeling is mainly about how these type of foundation or architecture blueprint which we have created will look like, how it will be viewed by the end users. Okay, again, I will repeat that. When we are saying foundation means we have entities, number of entities, attributes, and relationship. In order to create an architecture, these are some of the components make the entire model, like entire database. So there are different versions are there. We will be focusing on extended ER modeling, and there is something called as unified modeling languages, which is called as a UML. We are not focusing on the UML, but you should know this is something required for other courses as well. Maybe we will learn in Java, maybe object-oriented, these type of diagrams. And why it is important, because it will give you more information about the functionalities of the system and the interaction between a user and the system as well. What is UML? The UML consists of number of diagrams, such as sequence diagram, class diagram, domain diagram, state machine diagram, and so on. You do not have to remember these diagram names, but still you should know that these diagrams are there in UML, which is used to provide more information about how the system will interact with the user, or user interact with the system. Okay, so these are some of the diagrams which are used mainly in Java object-oriented courses or system analysis and design courses. We do have two type of models for ER models, for ERD. One is called as a Chen model. You can see it here. And one is called as Crowfoot model. Our main focus in this course is on Crowfoot model. We are not focusing on Chen model here. The Chen model consists of a rectangle. You can see here the oval, which is an attribute, and we have an underline for the primary key. You should know how it looks like, so you can differentiate between the Crow and the Chen model. But again, our focus is mainly on the Crowfoot model because I don't want you to give me the Chen model. You can see here the notation they have given for the entity, it's capital. This is correct. You will find for the attribute, it's given as all capitals. This image is from the book, but this is a convention they have used, different convention you can find, but I will tell you the one which is mostly used by the researcher and used in the books as well. Okay, this is something which is there. It's not incorrect, it is correct, but still we are following the different convention. Okay, this is for you, so you will not be confused about it, that why we have different convention in this specific diagram. Any question here? Okay, so if you have any questions, please raise your hand. I think you can add. I think there is symbol for emotions there, I think so, or reactions on Zoom, so you can try to use them. So I will know that you have any questions. Now let's move to the next part. So now what is entities, attributes, and optional attributes? Yes, we'll be focusing on Crowfoot model only. We are not focusing on a Chen model. Okay. You will find that majority of the people, they prefer to have Crowfoot models because these are the ones majority of the time the organization they use them. They don't use Gen 1 because Gen 1 doesn't consist of more information which is related to, for example, bolding them. We have to bold them. Whereas the Crowfoot one is much simpler as compared to the Chen model, and I don't think so that I have seen in my life that someone have used a Chen model. It was before, I think before 2013, I have seen that, but after that I haven't seen that any of the universities are also teaching a Chen model. You'll find that some of them may be teaching, but I haven't seen as per my experience, I haven't seen that. Okay. But in this course, we are focusing on that because all the courses which are linked to them is focusing on only Crowfoot model. So now let's come back to our ER modeling. We have something called as an entity. We have something called as an attribute and optional attributes. So now what is entity? We said that entity is an object. It is a class. It is something, it can be a person, thing, or any real life example. Real life object or example. Okay, such as a car here. So car is also an object or is also a thing, right? Then we have an attribute. Each entity we have consists of certain properties or characteristics. Mainly we call them as a attribute or columns. Then we have something called as an optional attribute. So if you remember in our table, we had some of the values which were null in our bad design and the good design example. We had certain values which were null, which means that type of attributes, we call them as optional attribute. Any attribute which contains null values will be called as optional attributes. This is a definition for you, so you remember what is optional attributes. Now, how we can draw the entities and attributes? We have to look at the convention, which we will be following throughout this course. There are a number of conventions are there, but this is the one which will be following throughout the course. For the entity first, we have to use a singular noun, which means it should be car, no s in the end. It should be singular noun only. Okay. So car without s, it is acceptable. If it is plural, we do not want to have a plural. In some example, you'll find that some of the books have used the plural, but the conventions which I'm telling you now is majority of the researchers, they use it. Okay. There is no right and wrong answer, but I'm following the one which is used by majority of the people. Now for the attributes, you will find that you have to use a camel case, which means the first letter of each word we have should be capital. And we can use an underscore here. You can also find that some of them, they are using hyphen here. It is acceptable, but in this convention, which we are following throughout this course, we are not using it. We are not using hyphen, we'll be using an underscore. You may have seen that in some of the example, we have nothing in between, no space in between as well. This is also acceptable. What is not acceptable, all the letters which are lower cases, or only one of the word is capital. Okay. So it should be, the correct form is this part, this one and this one. One is with underscore and each word to be capital, or two words are combined together without any space or any special symbol. Okay, no special symbol in between. Any question here? I haven't said that you have to do either. I'm telling you, you have to use the one which has a tick mark only. One is with underscore and one is with space. Yes, this one is acceptable. But if you are referring to this part, if it's a cross, it means a cross, okay? Okay, so now I will move ahead. So this is something which we have done earlier as well, primary keys, composite keys. So in primary keys, we know it should be unique and not null. Some of the students, they said that whenever we are setting a primary key, should we make it as not required or set it as a required? Which means not null. So whenever we already have assigned it as a primary key, we do not have to set it as a required or not null. What does it mean? Whenever you create a database, so we have a primary key, let's say. The primary key here is, let's say, employee ID. You just set it as a primary key. You do not have to include not null to it. You will find some people already have used it. It's not incorrect. But if we are talking about in terms of memory, why should we add a not null when we already have assigned it as a primary key? Primary key automatically means it should be unique and cannot be null. So if you are adding not null constraint here, we're calling it as a constraint, which means you are allocating a space to the specific constants you have added to your database. We have to make sure whenever we are creating any constraint, we are adding any attributes, we have to make sure we only include the one which is required because we will be affecting our space, which is available or memory available for storing the databases. We have to space that, we have to save that space because we do not want to come with the constants which is not required, okay, which are additional. Okay, yes, Danica, you are right. You can say that last name without space and last name with underscore, both are acceptable. Okay. So you are saying, Andre, it will be required by default. By default, whenever we are setting as a primary key, which means it is unique and not null. So we do not have to assign not null to it. You will find that majority of the people, they have assigned it as a primary key and they said not null. But is it required? Do you think is it required? Anyone of you can tell me, is it required to set it as not null when we already assign it as a primary key? It's not required, because if you are saying that it is required, which means you're adding that constraint to a constraint section in your database. We have constraints in the list of constraint folder, or we can say the file there in our databases, which means we are taking more space by adding the things which is not required. So we also have to think as a database administrator how we can make sure that our space are not used for unnecessary things. Okay, we have to create a queries or create an entities which are efficient. Okay, so I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if you already have assigned it as a primary key, so you do not have to assign it to be null. I have given you one example here. Christian, is it clear for you now? I'm not saying that you have to pick an attribute which shouldn't be null. What I'm saying is that whatever attribute you have selected to be a primary key, you already have assigned it to be a primary key. So by default, it is unique and not null. So you do not have to create another constraint on employee ID. Okay, when I will start creating an ERD diagram with you, then I will explain you further what does it mean. Okay. Now for the composite key is also called as a compound key. So whenever you are saying the compound key, I always refer it to as let's look at the compound word. It's from your general English. Okay. So you know that what is compound words are. Compound words means you take two words and you create a new word, right? For example, foot and ball is equal to football, which means we combine two words together and we created a new word here. Same way, composite key, we combine a multiple attributes together and we create a new key out of it. Okay, is it clear? Because I will give you more example scenarios now for compound key. Is it clear? Okay, so anyone of you, if you have a question, I will wait for you for a second, then I will move ahead. Okay, now I will start with the scenario. So for composite key, there are a number of ways we can write the composite keys or create them. For example, the first example is primary key, and the primary key will create a composite key. CK means composite key. This is one scenario. We can also combine primary key and foreign key together, which will be also composite key. We can also combine primary key and any attribute and call it as a composite key. Okay. But when we combine any attribute plus any attribute, which means can be number of attributes which are not primary key or foreign key, it will be called as composite attribute. You can also call the primary key combination as a composite attribute as well. So these are the one also called as a composite attribute. I'm calling as a CA, which is a composite attribute. But the fourth scenario you have, it will be only called as a composite attribute, but not composite key, because it doesn't have any unique key here involved. No unique key involved, which means we can only call it as a composite attribute. Okay, is it clear? I will give you one example for the fourth one. For example, you have a last name and the first name. Those two are any attributes, okay? And when we combine them together, and it becomes a full name. So we are combining them, here it is compound, or we have concatenated it. Which means we combine two attributes together which are not unique or foreign key, and it creates a composite attribute. We cannot call it in that case a composite key. Composite key, we will call it whenever we have a one of the attribute which can be a primary key or foreign key. Composite attribute means it's a combination of two attributes. Here we are, composite attribute means we are combining two attributes together. Here we are combining them. We are combining here as well, we are combining here as well. We are combining it here as well. We are saying that they can be called as a composite attributes as well. But when exactly we cannot call the two attributes which is combined together as a compound key. Whenever we are combining attributes which doesn't have any keys, we cannot call it as a composite key. Okay, you will find the terminology here, but you should know that these scenarios. Is it clear, Rafael? Is it clear now? If you don't understand it, it's fine. I can repeat that. I will give you one example now for composite key as well. Is it fine? Okay. So if you want me to, I can repeat that. Okay. So now I will give you one example where we are combining a third one. I will be removing this one now to make it easier to be understood. So now we are saying that for the third one, we are combining a primary key and any attribute to create a composite key or composite attribute. So we are saying that we have product ID, which is, let's say, 001, 002, 003, and so on. And we have something called as product initial. So it can be PSC, ALU. Okay, so we have an initial here. So whenever we want to combine or create a composite key, we combine these two attributes together to create a new attribute, such as PSC 001, ALU 002, and TIN, which is 003, which means we have created from two attributes. One is unique key, which is a primary key. Another one is, it can be repetitive. Okay, so product initial can be any attribute, because mostly some of the product initials can be repetitive. So we have created one composite key out of two attributes here. One is primary key, another one is any attribute. When exactly we use such kind of example, so whenever you visit any of the supermarket, maybe you want to return any product, you will see that each product consists of initial and the number. So if you visit a customer service and ask them to return certain product, how they can identify which aisle or which category it is belong to, based on the initial provided in the each code, each product. Each product ID will consist of, some of them doesn't consist of anything, but majority of the time, in order to classify the product, where exactly which aisle, which category it is belong to, whether it's from food items, whether it's from clothing side or furniture, we need to differentiate them. We do have certain product initials as well, which is easier for customer service or any sales point, from the sales point, to find the product, which aisle it is belong to, which category it is belong to, so they do not have to look at entire store about which product is from which aisle or which section it is belong to. Okay, so this is one example which is mostly used in a real life example, and it makes their life easier to categorize them. Any questions here? So foreign key, we have it here. The foreign key here, you can see here we have a foreign key. One attribute can have one foreign key, or one attribute can have multiple foreign keys. Why we need to have a foreign key? So we are saying that whenever we have two entities, entity 1 and entity 2, and both have a relationship between each other, we have to make sure the primary key in one entity is there in entity 2 as a foreign key. How we can place them, I will teach you later on, that how we can place the foreign keys in which entity. Okay. Now, one more thing we have to consider in foreign keys, in database, we do not have a link. Only we use foreign key in order to classify or identify that there is a relationship between an entities. We add foreign keys as a constant there. Okay. Any questions? So now we'll move ahead with our lab 3, and then I will start with the relationship. The first step in your lab here is you have to install a Visio. In case any one of you haven't done it, please let me know. I will help you with it. Hopefully you can see my lab 3 sheet now. So in lab 1, you are required to install your Visio file. You have to install it. After installing, we will start with drawing the ERD diagrams. So for the Visio itself, I will create the file again for you. So you will find here why we are using a Visio. First of all, we are using a Visio because it's the majority of the organization, they use Visio. It is a paid version mostly. And why it is a paid version? Because it consists of number of templates for each of the organization who are using number of categories. For example, floor plans, you can create a layout of your office, maybe 3D maps, maybe a floor plan, and so on. So these are mostly used by engineers to design their floor plans or maybe layouts. Okay, so you can see here we have number of designs are here in each categories. It is also used by business people to create their organization chart. They can also create something called as you can see here the marketing chart or department organization and so on. So these are some of the additional features we have in this Visio, and how it will benefit us for example, for the software itself. For software, you can see here all the diagrams are here in the one place. We have something called as the UML diagrams. You can see here we have number of them are here. We do have something called as a networking as well, which is mostly used for the people who are in networking or maybe into hardware, or it is also someone who is troubleshooting them or creating a network for the organization. So these diagrams are used to create those type of networks as well. Okay, so you can find it here. So that's why I want to offer the Visio in case if you're not able to do it. still feel free to use any other software, but let me know in advance in case if you have any questions, because as a human, it's not possible for me to know all the softwares. I also have to look at what type of software you're using, and I have to learn as well myself sometime to how to use them. Okay, it's not possible for me to know all the softwares. Only thing which I want you to consider here is that you are using a correct notation, which I will show you now. If you are not following the correct notations, then you have to opt for the one which matches them. Okay. Okay, Marcus, I think so. You haven't seen my post earlier. I have given you 2 keys. Each version I have given to you consists of 2 keys, so you have to look at it. Please try to do that. In case if you are not able to see it, I can show you now here in my lab setup. You can see here for each of them, you will find that there are 2 keys are here. Okay, so if first one is not working, second one will work for you. If you're still struggling, please let me know so I can look at it, because I have to make sure that you are able to install it. Else, alternatives I already have provided you with. Majority of the students, they are using the usage chart. You can use that. Okay, hopefully, Marcus, I have answered your question. So now let's go back to our visual. So how we can draw a Crawford database model. For me, it is showing me a template here, but you might not find the template in your visual. So how you can find it? Okay, Marcus, maybe when all students will be working on the lab, maybe you can message me and I can talk to you. Okay. So you can see here we have number of categories are here. Our category is a database. So in database, you will find all type of templates, but we are interested to create a Crawford database notation. Click on it, select the default one, and click create. So it will open a drawing one window. You can see here. You can see on your left side, it consists of all the notation which is used in Crawford databases. We have something called as an entity with attributes, and we have an entity. Both of them are similar. However, the entity with attributes are showing you a data types as well. Just a minute, let me try to increase the size of it. Hopefully it's big enough to be seen on your screen. Okay, I will move ahead with that. I will change the setting. Hopefully you can see it now. Okay. I have changed it to it. Hopefully you can see it now. So I will again show you. So we are saying that we have left side, we have all the notations, which consist of entity with attributes and entity. Both of them are similar. The only difference here is that it consists of data type. Even if you're using this one, you can unhide these type of attributes as well. So if you right click on it, it will show you the show attribute type. If you click on it, it will remove the data type as well. In this specific lab, we are not showing or displaying the data type. Okay, so this is something you have to consider. We have attributes in case if you want to add more attributes to our tables, we can drag and drop, or you can click on the right click on the attribute. First select an attribute. You can see here, you don't have to click on the table. Click on an attribute itself. You can see it will be highlighted something like this. And then you have to right click. It will show you inserting before and after the attributes as well. So this is one way more you can insert the attributes into your entity. We have something called as a set primary key. So in case if that attribute need to be set as a primary key, you click on the primary key. If you want the second one to be set as a foreign key, you can also do that. In case if the primary key is also a foreign key, you can also click on a foreign key as well. It will show you primary key and foreign key as one attribute also. So in case if you want that specific attribute to be set as not null, we use set required here. It will be bolded. The bold means here that it is not null. Okay, you do not have to do that for the primary key. This is something which I have mentioned earlier, because by default, the primary key means it can be not null, because primary key means it should be unique and not null. Okay. In order to create a relationship, you drag and drop the relationship notation. You can see here there are two options are there, set begin symbol and set end symbol. I will explain to you when I will move to the relationship. Okay, what does it mean? We have 4 categories for each of them. So I will explain to you now what. Your first step here is that you have to create 3 entities here. This is one of the example I've given to you. So what you have to do, you have to create an entity called as a customer, or capital. It consists of customer ID, which is a foreign key. We have a last name. We have a first name. And the last name and first name is set to required. Okay. So if I will go back to my lab, okay, so I will show you now my PDF version, because it doesn't it doesn't allow me to display all the screen. Instead, it will ask me to select the one screen only. So hopefully you can see my lab sheet. So what I want you to do here is that I want you to create 3 entities. One is customer, the other one is work, and the transaction. How you have to draw them, how your final output look like. It will look like something similar to the visual diagram I have given to you. So we are not focusing on art and customer artists. Our focus here is on these 2 entities. Okay, it will be somehow similar to it. I will show you the final output as well now in a while. Before going ahead with that, I want you to consider what you have to submit for your lab 3. For lab 3, you have to submit your visual file. Whatever you have done, you will submit it by naming your files. Why I keep asking you to name your files? Because sometime when I download all students' file, it may be corrupted. So I have to make sure that the file which I'm downloading, the system is not corrupting it. Maybe you have submitted the corrupted file, maybe system is corrupting it. So based on the name which it's downloaded with, I will be able to figure it out that there is no issue with the file itself. Okay, that's why I ask you to please name them. So also I will not misplace your files as well. So the first format is a visual. For visual, you have to submit the 3 entities. Both of them should have attributes, primary keys, foreign keys, and set required, and relationships. Second, you have to export to your JPEG format. I will show you how to do that. The third one, you have to provide me with a Word file. The Word file will have short description about why do you think the work and transaction are set to, some of the attributes there are set to null. What are these 2 attributes? Or it's more than 2 attributes mainly. So let me go back here. Let's look at the work. We have 2 entities here, which are title and copy, which is set to not null. What do you think why it is set to not null? Okay, so this is something you have to provide me a description with. Why do you think it is not null? Then you have to create a folder and add all the files into that folder and zip your file or folder. Okay, zip all your file into one folder. How you can do it, I can also show you in case if you don't know how to create a folder and unzip them. So for example, here I will be showing you my screen now. So you can see I have created a folder with my name, lab 3, first name, last name. So you can change the first name to your name, your first name, such as mine is Aisha and my end name is Amza. Okay. You should have all 3 files inside the folder. I have only 1 now, but you need to have all 3 files. One ends with VSDX, which is a visual drawing format. We will have another one, which is a Word format, and another one will be a JPEG. Just go here, click send to and compress file. It will compress the file, upload the zip file. Okay, this is something which I want you to do for your lab. This is how you'll be submitting. Any question here before I move ahead with exporting and setting up your pages? Okay, I think so. No questions so far. Okay, so now I will show you how to set up your pages. Okay, you can see here down the window to the taskbar, here you have page 1 and all. You have to right click on the page, you will see here page setup. All the steps are given in your lab sheet. I'm just doing in front of you so I can explain more in detail. Lab setup, or page setup, page size, you will see 3 options here. This is by default. You can also predefine your size based on different standards we have. I'm keeping it as a default. We have something called as A4, A3, A2, A1. The A4 is normal paper which we use to print any of the papers. Okay, any of the slides if you're printing, you mostly use A4. A3, A2 is depend on what type of posters you are posting, because it's a big paper size of any of the diagram you have created. Then you have custom size. In order to create a more space for your diagram, you can change these parameters to 250 or 350 or any values which best fit your example or your scenario. You can change the page orientation as well to the landscape or to the portrait as you like to. Apply and okay. So why do we need to change the layout of our page? For these labs, we do not need to change a page setup, but we need to learn how to do it, because later on, whenever we have multiple entities and relationship, it will be very difficult for us to fit into one page. Okay, so if we have 10 entities here, so it will be very difficult to look at the page, and it will be very clumsy diagram. So we have to make sure we know how to set up our page in case if we have a huge database which consists of number of entities. This is how we can expand our page setup also. Okay, through the page setup. Now what else? Now, in case if you want to export our diagram into image format, you go to File, Export, change file type. You can see here in the graphic file types, there are different type of formats are provided, but we are interested to convert into JPEG, save into the folder which I've shown to you earlier, or you have to create your ones, or however you have created it, it's up to you. So you will name it, as I have told you, the lab 3, first name and the last name. And okay, so this is how you will be able to save your files. So you can see here, okay, it hasn't, because for me, I'm connected to cloud. It will take some time to display here. Okay. What else? This is it for the lab 3. I think so you can start working on it. And if you have any question, let me know. Then we'll move to the relationship. I'm giving you 15 minutes to complete it, and how your output should look like. Your output should look like something similar to this. This is your lab 3. Okay, these are the 3 entities you have to show me: customer, transaction, and work. And the relationship, as I've given you 15 minutes, once you are done, I will explain to you how to do the relationship and what other relationships are. Okay, so I will stop my recording and then you can start working on it. If you have any questions, let me know. The students who are not able to install this software, please send me a message on Discord or Zoom as you like to. I'm not disconnecting my call yet. I'm just stop recording. I will stop recording now.